Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Get to Know DealCloud webinar series. Just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, this is Max Haskin speaking. I head up our client solutions team at DealCloud. You may recognize my voice from some of the prior webinars. I'm joined by two of my colleagues today, Jack Broadbent and Dan Hammaker. So Jack and Dan, maybe take a quick moment to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Hammaker. I'm a director on DealCloud's product team. I've been at DealCloud for a little bit over 3 years now, and I head up a team focused on some of our more end-user-facing pieces of functionality. That includes DealCloud Dispatch, our reporting framework, and some new products we'll talk about later.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Broadbent. I work alongside Dan as another director on the product management team. I'm part of the team that's responsible for the DealCloud integration strategy, which includes DataCortex, our third-party data integration framework, as well as our API suite, which can be used for building custom integrations. We also look after a number of the DealCloud admin tools, including user management, site settings, internal tools, and a few others. I'm really excited to take everyone through the program today. We've got some great updates to share with you and looking forward to hearing questions at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So the topic for today is our Spring 2020 product release. So thank you, Jack and Dan, for leading us through that discussion. Before we dive into it, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I'll just kind of point out quickly. Like many of you, the DealCloud team is currently working from home. So if there's an occasional background noise, we hope you excuse us for that. Additionally, as Zoom experiences high volume and high usage, we may experience some connectivity issues. While that's unlikely and hopefully that won't happen, it's worth mentioning that this session is being recorded and will be distributed to everybody afterward. And finally, we encourage participation. So please submit questions. You can do so using the Q&A function within Zoom, and we will make sure to answer all those questions toward the end of the session. All that being said, I'll hand it over to Jack and you can kick things off.
Thanks, Max. So at DealCloud, our product delivery cycle operates on a seasonal cadence, meaning that we have 4 major releases a year. And with each release, we're launching new products and features and making tweaks and enhancements to existing features. Additionally, we'll deliver monthly updates to the product, which are designed to address small usability issues and help us maintain the overall stability and reliability of the platform. As you can see here, we're gearing up for the Spring 2020 release coming in early June. Each one of these is a significant milestone for us as a product team, but also for the entire company and our client base. So we're not just releasing in the dark and not telling anybody what's changing. We have what I'll call a release package, which has been growing over time to include like release notes, client trainings, featured one-pagers, and webinars like the one we're doing today. So part of what we want to do today is to take you through some of the highlights for this upcoming spring release and give you a sneak peek of some of the things we've been working on. First, we thought we'd spend a little bit of time recapping some of the changes we've made in previous releases that you may have missed, and we'll draw attention to a few things we've added to the product and are available in the platform today. So one area of constant focus for us is DataCortex. For those of you who don't know, DataCortex is our native framework for integrating third-party data into DealCloud. This means that it's built directly into the DealCloud platform and is available to any clients who are already licensing content from one of our data partners. We typically work with 4 major buckets of content, including companies, deals, people, and news events. Now, all this content may already be available to you in some form or another through data feeds, web platforms, or APIs. But really, the value of DataCortex is that it seamlessly integrates that same content into DealCloud, where it can be matched up with existing data and can be surfaced and transformed according to how your firm sees the world, and then automatically updated on a nightly basis. So all the great reporting and execution tools that DealCloud already offers that you know about to help manage things like deal sourcing, intermediary and sponsor coverage, network and business development, investor relations and fundraising, all of those activities are still available in the same tool. But now those those activities can be enhanced with data through DataCortex to help you increase your win rate or expand the reach of your marketing efforts or whatever business objective you're pushing for. And so our strategy for growing DataCortex is to continue to form partnerships with the leading data providers in the space who are serving the same audiences that we are. By forming these partnerships, we're able to focus on what we do best, which is building software, and let the data providers focusing on gathering and packaging the data. And together, we're delivering an offering to the market that helps meet the increasingly important need to use data to inform the deal-making process. And one of the more exciting new partnerships we've recently formed is with FactSet. And we're now integrating a selection of their firmographic and financial data into DataCortex. We actually had a webinar a few weeks back with FactSet that covers that integration in detail. And I encourage everyone to check it out if they're interested. And the other component of our strategy for DataCortex is to continue to enhance the tools for actually integrating and consuming the data within DealCloud. So this includes things like automatically linking entries from the client's universe, companies to the corresponding entries in the data provider's universe based on their URL or name. We've also introduced new options that give users more flexibility when adding new entries from a data provider to DealCloud. So firm admins can make these decisions to allow users to create entries as new all the time, force them to deduplicate them against existing entries all the time, or leave that decision with the end user based on a case-by-case basis. So both of these new features that we've recently put out are designed to increase speed to value for DataCortex and remove barriers for getting new data into the system, attempting to reduce the manual workload, but all the while ensuring data quality. So hopefully that gives you a good sense of some of the things we've recently released to DataCortex. I'll pass it over to Dan to talk about DealCloud Dispatch.
Thanks, Jack. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with DealCloud Dispatch, Dispatch is our native digital marketing platform that currently supports email and web form channels. This has been a recent area of investment for us on the product team, as Dispatch has been in the market for a little over a year now. And Dispatch comes with several features designed specifically for the capital markets, things like BCC for email archives and the ability to attach DealCloud template reports to your sends. But in my own opinion, I would say the key differentiator of Dispatch is the data that it generates and the ability to leverage that marketing data in line with the other data you already use DealCloud to capture and manage. When you think about marrying your marketing and your deal data, you can begin to picture some really unique feedback loops where you're targeting marketing outreach in a clever way and then factoring engagement you get back into relationship management decisions with your various contacts. And I'd say we've seen some really effective use cases from clients on several fronts here. A couple of examples include direct to CEO deal sourcing efforts, where you're supplementing your personal outreach with broader sends about market trends and understanding which CEOs are engaging with which types of content. And then, of course, on the investor relations side, managing complex LP relationships and paying close attention to who's opening and clicking which event invitations. So as I mentioned, Dispatch is an area of ongoing investment for us. Some recent enhancements that we've made have focused on helping our clients achieve the right look and feel of their templates, which we know is paramount. So a few things we've done here. One is allowing multiple footer templates to be configured up front. This makes it easy to create one standard footer for your newsletters, another one for your deal announcements, as a simple example. Another thing we've done is made it a lot easier to send yourself test emails from the context of the template builder itself. That just makes it a lot quicker to shoot yourself a test and preview the email's appearance on your own desktop or mobile device. And then we also made some investments recently in our pre-built template library. This is another example of Dispatch's orientation towards the private capital markets specifically. Our template library is very industry specific, focusing on transaction announcements and other types of communication we know our clients send regularly. And now there's a far more robust library that our clients can use to get started on new communications that they're designing. So that covers some of what we've been working on related to DataCortex and Dispatch, which are, again, two pillars of the DealCloud product that we're excited to continue investing in. Now we'll take a few minutes to review some enhancements that we've made recently in other areas as well.
We recently delivered a new feature set that helps create what we call contextual awareness across our reporting tools. So for all entry detail pages and template reports throughout DealCloud, it's now possible to quickly surface other entries across other lists that may be similar based on specific attributes or shared relationships. And this notion of similarity can be defined according to a specific use case or client objective. And as with everything in DealCloud, flexibility is really the name of the game here. So for example, when looking at a deal overview page in DealCloud, we can automatically surface other deals from your historical or future pipeline that are similar, where that similarity can be based on any number of properties about the deal. So maybe you just start with the deal size and the deal type, but you could potentially go as far to add things like how that deal was sourced, the specific sub-industries, or even granular details about the target company like ownership structure, financials, geography, etc. And from that same deal detail page, you could also use this feature to surface potential capital providers who may be interested in getting involved based on their stated or demonstrated buying preferences. There's really no end to the ways in which this feature can be used. It's already been really cool to see what our teams have come up with as they've been working to deliver this. We've also made a number of significant enhancements to our support tools to help our teams continue to provide best-in-class client support. First of all, it's now possible to contact our support team from directly within the DealCloud web portal. Users can click the question mark icon in the upper right of the portal and quickly add a ticket to the support queue. Additionally, from the same question mark icon, users can access DealCloud University, which is our native training hub that contains videos, documentation, and other content about how to use the product. Lastly, from DealCloud University, or by going directly to support.dealcloud.com, users can access our brand new support portal, which includes a growing knowledge base of step-by-step guides for using, implementing, and troubleshooting the product. The support portal also allows users to check the status of specific support requests that they may have opened. And it also includes the overall status of the DealCloud platform, where we list things like scheduled maintenance windows and display our uptime statistics. So we're really excited overall about this support portal and having all these great new tools which enable our teams to work more closely with our clients and to continue to invest in sharing information about how the product works and how you can get the most out of our tools.
Great. Two other areas where we've made enhancements recently are reporting and data entry. From my perspective, these are bread and butter groups of functionality for us as a product team that get very consistent attention from us. On the reporting front, our goal recently has been to make it easier to find and surface specific pieces of data. So a lot of you may have noticed UI improvements that we made recently. They not only updated the overall look and feel of DealCloud and helped streamline many of our controls, but you may have also noticed some new font choices. And those were designed actually specifically to help make large grids of data easier to scan and generally reduce the cognitive load when using DealCloud and looking at all the different widgets and dashboards that can be configured. Speaking of widgets, our large value widget, as well as our updated search and new functionality for drilling down into pivoted values, help our users dial into specific data points more quickly. I'd say the large value widget is a particular favorite of mine. I find it especially useful when trying to highlight key metrics like a funnel milestone, which is one actually example of the way we use those widgets internally. And another enhancement here in the reporting category that I'd mention is our parameterized reports, which let users tailor tear sheet content in more detail at runtime. So this is something that might be used if you're generating an investor report and you want to produce a report regarding just a certain time frame, or if you're looking at an LP and you want to examine their relationship with just one or two of your funds. Those are great examples of where you might fill in additional parameters about your report at runtime. On the data entry side, I think this is an area where we are continually striking a balance between enabling greater ease of entering data, while at the same time helping our clients maintain strong process and strong data integrity throughout their sites. So on the ease of use front, we've introduced our direct edit, quick edit from charts, and pinned entry form features. They all, again, make it easier to add and edit data quickly, especially within the context of your reporting, which we know is very important, especially when you're trying to understand what to edit and are leveraging data that you have present on different charts and grids. Items like our force step-by-step for choice fields feature and enhancements that we've made to the merge entries tool make it easier to enforce your data entry rules either up front or on the other side after a potential duplicate entry has been entered. And then finally, I'll mention our work on behalf of feature. I think this is very unique. It's designed to allow users to work on behalf of other users, not a crazy name there, but it should help facilitate more work between admins and the partners or directors that we work with. I'd also mention there's another great use case that we've identified here, which is that work on behalf of actually makes for a great way to QA the impact of permissions and design decisions that administrators of the DealCloud platform might be making around data entry or data visibility for other members of the team. So for our platform managers on the webinar, you could picture a world, I'm sure, where you make some changes to the entry form or to the way different entry detail page tabs are going to render for different user groups, and you want to quickly get a sense for how a new deal team or analyst group member would see that when they log in. You could simply work on behalf of one of those users and get a sense for how your changes flow through to them. Great, so that covers some of what we've shipped recently. Now we'll turn to discuss some of what's to come in our upcoming spring release. We'll start here with automations. This is new functionality that we are very excited to finally introduce to the whole client base. It's been in a limited beta for the last quarter and obviously under development for much longer than that. Automations is a new event action framework for triggering the creation and editing of entries or an instant alert whenever another entry is created, edited, or deleted in DealCloud. So as with everything in DealCloud, we've designed this generically to fit any data model or site configuration that our clients bring to the table. But some sample use cases, I think, just to get the wheels turning a little bit, when you add a company in your strike zone, for instance, you could configure an automation that automatically creates a deal and slots it into the right stage in your pipeline. Another example, if you are concerned about tracking contacts' past relationships with their previous employers, you might consider any time a company field on a contact gets edited, automatically creating a record to capture their previous employment at that firm. The goal here with automations is to help our clients bring more of their process online and help streamline any existing process that they have in DealCloud by reducing data entry that might be a little bit manual or tedious and ultimately increasing the accuracy of the data that you have in DealCloud. So this is going to be an ongoing area of investment for us. You'll see new capabilities and new features coming around automations and future releases. But we are excited to introduce V1 of this with our spring release. For our existing clients, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to customer success and support to get this enabled in your site.
So earlier we covered some of the recent enhancements that we've already made to DataCortex, which are currently available. Now I want to talk about some of the upcoming improvements to the framework that we're making. Most notably, we're very excited to be announcing our partnership with S&P Global, which will allow us to integrate portions of the CapIQ and market intelligence data sets into DealCloud. This is a huge milestone for DataCortex, and this is one of the most frequently requested integrations, which I think really further speaks to the demand for combining premium content from the market with our data consumption and reporting tools. there's actually already a portion of the S&P content available through DataCortex today, including basic company information, key developments, and people data. And then with the June release, we'll extend that to include additional company financials, historical deal data, and some more company-to-company relationships. And after that, as always, we'll continue to grow the partnership by bringing in more data and functionality as we listen to and learn from our mutual clients. Also coming in the June release are two significant feature sets that are designed to make DataCortex even more powerful and easy to use. First is what we're calling the DataCortex widget. This is designed to surface related content from within a third-party data provider's database that may not yet be synced to DealCloud, and then to prompt users to sync relevant entries. So what I mean by that is, once you sync a company from any of your preferred data sources, the standard DataCortex functionality starts populating fields on that company record. That's table stakes. But with the DataCortex widget, we can now show all kinds of other content that's tracked by the provider that hasn't yet been synced to DealCloud. So for example, we can create grids to present a list of contacts who work at the company, show the deal history for the company, or highlight recent events or key developments directly from that company profile page. And all you have to do is sync that company to a selected provider one time, and then all this data will be available and continuously updated in the right context. We're going to take a look at some specific examples of how that can be used later on in the demo. Secondly, we're making a substantial improvement to the entity resolution service that powers the DataCortex matching process. The new service will use statistical learning to generate a unique match score between company or contact records and allow users to easily adjust the thresholds for suggested matches. And some of the goals for this new service are to obviously increase speed and performance, but also to suggest higher quality potential matches so you can onboard new content faster and more effectively. So these are some really exciting developments on the DataCortex front. We're super excited to be announcing the partnership with S&P. We've got a lot of great materials that are available to help you learn more. And if you're interested, obviously reach out to your DealCloud rep. They can share some of those materials with you and guide the process from there.
Great, very exciting stuff there. On the reporting side, as I mentioned, this is an area that gets consistent attention from us on product. Our spring release is no different. And in this release, we've continued working to improve the ease of use of our reporting framework, and we've made some ongoing investments on the data discovery side. So a few things to call out here. I'll start with our two new chart types, our bubble and pie drill down charts here. Where these are unique is in the way that they allow us to support third variables of reporting. So for instance, you could picture creating a bubble chart in your site where you organize opportunities sourced by volume and size, and then show bubble size by the number of opportunities that you source from a firm that ultimately closed, right? So that gives you a new dimension of data, not just to analyze the volume of opportunities, but also their relative quality. And we've introduced our charts and graphs functionality in our Word add-in as a beta recently. We're going to add to that here by enabling the new chart types there as well. So excited to continue investing in that beta and making more investments in data discovery that way. You'll also notice big usability enhancements for our dashboard and detail page configuration experience. This is an area, again, that I think will be encountered most frequently by our platform managers, from whom we are eagerly awaiting feedback. But you'll see new features around copying and pasting widgets, for example, that we think should make the experience a lot easier and a lot more seamless when creating several dashboards and detail pages at one time. The other major enhancement coming in the spring that I'd like to spend some time on is our new views experience, which from my perspective should enhance usability and discoverability of data. So with the new experience, clients are going to be able to create folders of views, share just certain folders with certain team members, and in general, build out trees that provide a lot more organization to views than you have today with the public and private buckets. And those folder trees are going to flow through to our add-ins with Excel and Word. They'll flow through to Dispatch if you're building views for contacts to send emails to. So a lot of ways to take and apply this folder structure, and we're excited to introduce it and look to add additional content to it in the future. Of course, in addition to new features, we're always working to improve our existing functionality. We call this category our functional depth category, and it gets a lot of focus from us as a team with every release. A few areas of functional depth that are worth calling out in the spring. Our calculation engine is getting a brand new user interface that should deliver some serious experience improvements, especially around making it easier to write formulas and validate your syntax when you're creating new calculated fields. So we're very excited about that. Jack mentioned some of what we've done on the matching algorithm for Cortex. That algorithm is also going to be available in our merge entries experience. So our client should be able to identify potential duplicate entries more quickly and more accurately with this new algorithm. And then items like our security and permissions and bug fixes receive constant attention. So you'll see some tweaks to our template report logic. You'll see some ways in which it's now easier to identify which users have access to which features. Items like that, like I said, are getting constant attention and feedback from us. Great. So now that we've taken several minutes to talk through some of the new functionality coming in the spring, we wanted to spend some time actually showing you what it looks like. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Max to walk us through a demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. All right. Hopefully everybody can see my screen at this point. So what we wanted to do is just kind of highlight or call out some of those new features and themes and topics that Jack and Dan just kind of walked us through. There are two major topics that we wanted to call out here in the demo. The first is going to be automations, and the second is going to be DataCortex. And within the context of those two examples, I'll also be calling out some other kind of new features that we've hit on, such as new reporting features and our new direct editing feature and things like that. So that is the agenda for the demo here. What you're looking at is our kind of private equity demo environment. So some of the use cases will be kind of private equity focused, but of course, all of these features can be extrapolated across all of the different use cases and client types. The first example, the first topic we wanted to cover here is this concept of automations. And if you remember what Dan said, automations is an event action framework that allows us to automatically either create new entries or update existing entries based on some action that takes place in DealCloud. We are incredibly excited about this functionality because if you think about how you use DealCloud and the flexibility that DealCloud enables, right? So many of our clients have configured these bespoke workflows and processes that can take advantage of the flexibility and different things that you can create in DealCloud. But the only problem with it is that often what that increased complexity comes with is increased data entry, right? Where if I have to create one object and then another, that all has to happen manually today, right? And what automations does is kind of streamlines the updating and creation of those downstream objects. And I'll give you some kind of specific examples of how that works, right? So the way that many of our private equity clients are thinking about this is a lot of them have implemented their investment committee processes into DealCloud. So meaning, right, I log a deal and then I have to take that deal to investment committee. I have to potentially take that deal through multiple rounds of an investment committee. And within each one of those rounds, there are multiple approvals that are required by each one of the investment committee members, right? And as I even just said that, that requires a lot of steps and a lot of data entry for that to happen. So without automations, right, someone would have to update the deal, then somebody else would have to enter the investment committee record, and each one of the investment committee approvers would have to update their own records kind of manually. But now with automations, what I can do is say, all right, maybe I'm going to update this to the IC stage, and this is our new direct edit feature, where if I want to update this field, I can just kind of click this direct edit feature, and it'll take me right to that field in the entry form. So let's say we're taking this deal, project space, to investment committee, right? Which round of investment committee are we in? So we're in the intro meeting, kind of round of investment committee. Let's say that Max, Jack, and Dan are all on the investment committee. So they're going to need to approve this, right? And we're taking this to investment committee in our kind of investment committee meeting that's happening tomorrow. Once I update those 3 fields, that's going to trigger this whole investment committee automation so that, right, this investment committee record just got created. So we know when the investment committee is happening. So now if I'm on the deal team, rather than having to create this manually, right, this was just created, I can get an alert about this. Now if I want to put in my comments to IC, right, where IOI is due next week, right, here are the relevant materials. If I want to upload the documents, right, the investment committee paper, right, I can kind of add on to that as we go here. And additionally, each one of the investment committee members, so if you remember I said Max, Jack, and Dan are all in the investment committee, the approval record for each one of them got automatically created as well, so that they don't have to remember to come in and enter this themselves. This has been created for them. They can each get notifications that, hey, right, your investment committee approval is required for this deal, project space, right, this was created for you, right, and I can go in, update my vote, yes or no, move it to approval, right, and we can continue to kind of update this so that each one of these 3 people can put in their vote, approve this stage of the investment committee, and as I move to the next stage, right, this whole process can start again, right, so that now we're going to budget review, I update to the next stage, right, and now another set of approvals is going to get kicked off, another investment committee record, another set of approvals, right? So what this does is that it just automates that multi-step entry process that you're typically used to, where just by virtue of updating this deal, I now have automatically created records in these 2 other objects, in the investment committee and the investment committee votes. The second topic that we wanted to talk about today is DataCortex, right? And Jack can mention one of the things we're really excited about is our new partnership with S&P that allows us to kind of pull in data directly from CapIQ and from market intelligence. So I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like here. So for those of you who are familiar with our DataCortex, right, what that is the framework that allows you to kind of pull in third-party data from, right, those third-party providers. And the way I do that is by coming to the page for this company, right, hit my DataCortex icon there. And in this case, I want to link it to S&P Global. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, right? I'm going to select the entry that I want. Here it's Nike Inc., Nike.com. I can see that this is the right entry. I'm going to do this with multiple providers as well, right? So I can actually do this with multiple providers at the same time. For those of you who saw our FactSet webinar, this is another recent partnership as well. And once I establish that link, what that's now doing is pulling in the relevant details and data directly from those databases, right? So things like company firmographic details, some high-level financials. Jack kind of walked us through all of the different content sets that are going to be available through DataCortex. A few things I'll call out on this page. One is this concept of a large value widget. So this is one of the things that we mentioned was somewhat of a new feature, right? The ability to create these just larger values to call out more important data points, right? So I just want to call out employee count, EBITDA, revenue, right? These are things I can put bright colors on and just make it very clear and visible to me on the screen. The other thing I wanted to call out here, and this is a really significant enhancement to the DataCortex, which is that prior to today, what we had been able to do with DataCortex is kind of pull in the company details for this company, right? So type, financials, right? Some of the things we just talked about. But you'll notice on the screen here, there are multiple other sections or components of the data: contacts, key developments, subsidiaries. And this is what we call our new DataCortex widget. And what it's allowing us to do is not just pull in the kind of firmographic details about this company, but it's also surfacing the related entries that are related to this company, right? So in this case, we have the contacts that are at Nike, key developments. So think about these as kind of headlines or news items, and subsidiaries, right? All the underlying kind of companies that Nike owns, right? And without having to navigate to a separate page or search and link these things separately, just by virtue of establishing that connection at the company level, I'm able to see and pull in, right? These are the contacts for the management team, executives on the board, right? All these other items. And not only can I kind of pull them in or see them here, but I can also choose to sync them directly into my system as well. So let's say I wanted to create Phil Knight as a contact in DealCloud. I can select him, click sync, and it will create Phil as a contact in my DealCloud system. So just by virtue of linking this company to CapIQ, I can pull in any of the relevant entities. So things like contacts, key developments, and subsidiaries. We spent some time on a prior webinar talking about corporate carve-outs and divestitures, and be able to pull in the family tree, pull in the subsidiaries here, right? So if I want to add some of these companies to a target list, again, I can sync these in directly from here. So this is a really powerful enhancement to the DataCortex, which is allowing us to pull in all of these other kind of related entries. The other thing I wanted to highlight here, and one of the things that Jack mentioned on his slides, was this idea of context awareness, right? So that we can pull in, quote unquote, similar companies or similar entries to the one that's here. And you can define what it means to be similar, right? Same industry, same sector, same company type, right? And those are the kinds of tags that you can define as being similar, so that I can kind of pull in and see from the perspective of this company, hey, these are the handful of other companies that look like this one. So as you think about building comparable company sets for deals, for companies, right, this can happen automatically, and you can define kind of what parameters it means to be similar to this company. The last thing I wanted to highlight here are some of our new reporting features. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with our concept of tear sheets and reports. One of the new features that we mentioned was this idea of parameterized reporting. I hope I said that right. And basically the idea is that before I run the tear sheet, I can actually apply some filters to determine, right, what criteria I want to show up. So in this case, maybe I want to run the tear sheet and I only want activities that happened in the last 12 months to show up on that. So it can just help you kind of pre-filter data that's going to show up on your tear sheets, on your reports, so that you can kind of change the filter dynamically each time, right? So if I wanted to run a report for the last 12 months, I can do that. If I wanted to run another report for year to date or just current year, I can do that as well, and I can apply those filters before I run the report. The other cool thing we wanted to highlight is the addition of charts and graphs onto the reports themselves. So many of you are leveraging our charts and graphs within the web portal. But one of the big things we wanted to highlight was the ability to now include some of these charts and graphs right within your template reports. So that, right, when I generate, in this case, I generated a tear sheet or report for Nike, right, I'm able to pull in the relevant kind of context awareness of the comps we were just talking about and put some charts and graphs and visuals on this tear sheet as well. So this is another area that we're really excited about. We had a lot of feedback from our clients who love the tear sheets and wanted to include these charts and visuals. So we now have the ability to include those as well. So I'm gonna hit the pause button there on the demo. Hopefully that was a kind of good, quick overview of some of the new features that are coming. I'm gonna pass it back to Jack just to give us some kind of final thoughts on the upcoming release, and then we will answer some questions.
Yeah, just to wrap up here, I think as Jack was saying, everything we do here on the product team, enhancements, the new features that we work on delivering, these are all driven by feedback that we get from our clients and our users. So if you take away anything from this webinar, it's please continue to help push us forward by providing your feedback and engaging with the tools. It's extremely valuable to us. Great. So with that, let us jump into the Q&A.
So we've had a couple of questions come through, so we'll just kind of take them sequentially. Dan and Jack, hopefully if Jack's audio is not working, Jack, feel free to kind of type some answers into the thread as well. So first question came in and it says, if a customer needed to implement some open source code to accommodate certain customizations, would there still be updates on a semi-annual basis, or would updates be less frequent? Dan, do you want to take a stab at this? I have some thoughts as well.
Sure. Yeah, so the release cycle that we illustrated on a couple of slides here is for the core DealCloud product. So any supplementary development that our clients are doing around their instance of DealCloud, if they're connecting that with other third-party tools, that's typically maintained on the schedules that they dictate. Max, anything you would add?
Yeah, I would say everything that we talked about today, to Dan, to your point there, is kind of is specific to our kind of core product. As you all know, DealCloud is a pure SaaS model, so it is basically every client is operating on the same code base. There are some rare exceptions, I would say, that where there is kind of custom code, but that's very rare across the client base. So if that is the case, we can kind of take that conversation offline. But most of what we do is pure SaaS, where everybody's on the same code base.
Yep.
All right.
Great. I see another question here. How would the automation that Max demoed work for entering a new deal? We don't track investment committees in DealCloud. It's a great question. So as I described, automations is designed in a very generic way so that it can suit whatever configuration of a site you might have as a DealCloud client. And so in the example that I gave around creating a deal, when a new company gets entered, we talked about this being sort of an event action framework. So the event that we'd be listening for is the creating of the company that might be in our strike zone. And the action that it would take is to create the deal. And then upon creating the deal, it could take whatever information you define about the company or items related to the company that you might have also created, like contacts or other entries. So that's an area where you'd have the opportunity to define, obviously, what your strike zone is in that case, and what kind of companies you'd want deals automatically created for, and then, of course, how that deal should be created and where it should land in your pipeline.
Yeah, Dan, I would just add, just keep in mind, right, the example you saw today, it's just that, it's an example, right? But to Dan's point, the framework is generic so that anytime there's a multi-step entry process, so I enter a company, then I need to enter a deal, right? That's where you can think about automations as adding value. So we used investment committee as somewhat of a complex kind of example. There are multiple kind of steps to the entry process, but that the functionality can be applied broadly across different kinds of things that you're potentially entering in your DealCloud environment and the different workflows that you may have configured. Dan, excuse me, there's a question around dispatch improvements. Does the spring update include improvements to the dispatch WYS IWYG editor. I'm hoping you know what that means.
Yeah, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, Max. It's good, one of my favorite acronyms, actually. Yeah, so are there updates coming to the dispatch editor? There are. You'll notice some small usability enhancements here and there around text editing and dragging and dropping different blocks into cells. Some of the controls around background color especially have gotten some attention in this cycle. I will say, kind of behind the scenes, we've been doing some very thorough analysis on just looking at more holistic ways to improve that experience, and I'm excited about work underway there that should manifest in some future releases. So much more to come on the dispatch editor, but you will see some enhancements coming in the spring release.
Let's see here. Can you use the DataCortex widget to see a manager's current and past funds in Preqin? So Jack, if you're still on and you want to type in answer, you probably have the most clarity, but yes, that is something that's going to be coming with our partnership with Preqin. So you're on the right track on what the DataCortex widget is there for. We are incorporating some additional content sets from Preqin, but Jack, if you want to type an answer.
I was going to say, while Jack is getting back to us there, I'll address a question that came in regarding bubble charts. So the question is, can they also be configured in a similar manner to, say, a Boston Consulting Group matrix, whereby you can map either tasks or potential targets by 3 variables? For example, mapping targets in an industry by revenue, size, and likelihood of transaction, or another example with task by complexity, impact, and time. The answer is yes. So you'll have full flexibility to configure the bubble charts how you see fit. And those 3 examples, those 3 variables in each example sound like numeric values that you could use to plot something on the chart. So I think that's the one piece of kind of defining criteria there is you need some numeric value, obviously to define the X and Y axis, but then also to define the size of the bubble, which is your 3rd variable here. That gets expressed as a number as well. So I think that last example with task by complexity, impact, and time, if we can kind of quantify complexity, then that's a great use case for the bubble charts.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. So we have a question about automations that says, will the feature support more complex logic such as OR filters and nested conditions that must be met before creating the related records? So the answer is yes. There's logic that you can build in to the configuration of the automation that accounts for more complex or sophisticated filter criteria. So, right, deal is of a certain type and a certain industry and certain stage, or something, right? There can be multiple kind of iterations or variations of complex kind of parameters and filter options that you can add there. Dan, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just mention that in addition to those parameters kind of being used in upfront filtering, you can also use them to break out branches of your automation tree. So if you are looking at triggers to certain types of companies, for instance, when a company gets updated with a certain value, you might have one branch where different actions apply to companies in the healthcare industry, and then a separate branch where you're triggering certain actions for companies in industrials and manufacturing, for instance. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how you configure your logic around automations.
Cool. All right. There's a question around, are there any improvements coming to the search function? I don't know if there are in this release, but Dan, I know that we're working on some enhancements, so maybe you might want to tease some of the things we're working on search.
Yeah, so we made some substantial UI improvements to our full search experience. And one thing you'll notice in the spring release, and it's sort of an under the hood update, but you'll see that we are working to improve the relevancy of quick search results that we support so that you'll be able to be prompted to get results that are in line with your past browsing history. Going forward, we have more substantial search enhancements planned around advanced, new advanced search experience where you can filter your results further, almost in the style of a query, running a quick search against DataCortex data. So this is an area that we've begun quite a lot of R&D effort in, and you'll see some incremental improvements around quick search in the next release, with much more to come soon.
Cool. We have another question about kind of the automations example, which was, could you link documents stored in a specific folder on SharePoint to a given approval stage? So I'll say broadly, yes. We see many clients starting to build integrations to either SharePoint or whatever document management system they're using, and you can kind of link that into the workflow. So that does require some additional work beyond just turning on automations, which is for us to build an integration from DealCloud to your SharePoint environment. But in the overall context of the functionality, yeah, you can link a document and have that be kind of part of the approval and part of that workflow. But yes, don't want to misrepresent the fact that that would require some additional work to create an integration to SharePoint. But we see many clients kind of going in that direction. So that's certainly something that we see. We going one more question? Is that?
Yep, looks like we have time for one more here.
All right, and on a softball, is all this functionality available on mobile? Yes, broadly everything we do, all the functionality that we release generally is applicable on mobile. There's some significant enhancements coming to mobile, so maybe I'll let Dan kind of close out, end with some closing thoughts, and maybe tease out some things that are coming.
Sure. Yeah. So I think regarding mobile specifically, we have somewhat limited reporting in place today. That's going to change in a big way with the introduction of charts and grids on mobile, where the mobile app becomes a mobile reflection of your web-based DealCloud product. So, things like our reporting and the entries that get generated by automations, those will all be present in the mobile app. With the spring release, you won't be able to pull up a bubble chart on your phone, but that functionality is on its way. So a lot coming, as I'm sure you can sense, many investments here that will be bearing fruit in the near future.
Awesome. Well, I know we're running right to the top of the hour. There's some great questions. If there are any additional questions here, if your question didn't get answered, we'll follow up prior or after the session. But thank you all for participating. Appreciate all the questions, and hopefully this was a helpful session.
Great. And for more information or any questions about any of the content today, please do not hesitate to reach out to our sales or support teams. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.